everyone, today I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up, and because I didn't read that many books in September, I'm also going to do kind of an October TBR. I haven't been doing a ton of TBRs lately, mostly because I've just kind of been planning to read the same things for months and gradually working through them, and I've also just been in need of a more unstructured life. So I'll start off with a wrap-up, and then at the end I'll talk a little bit more about what I'm planning to read in October and beyond. As usual, I'll start off with a couple of statistics, and then I will rank the books from least favorite to favorite. This was actually a pretty good reading month for me. I think I basically liked everything I read, so the ranking will be very loose. In September, I read 7 books, which actually isn't that few. I think it's just that most of them were parts of series, so I think I just feel like I have a little bit less to talk about in this video, and that's why I decided to add on the TBR. So out of those 7, it looks like 4 were fantasy and 3 were science fiction, so pretty standard for me. Anything in a series I'm just going to group together, because if I have to rank different books in different series in different places in this list, that's just going to get really confusing. So the first thing that I'll talk about in terms of actually kind of my least favorite thing that I read in September, that is that I caught up with the InCryptid series by Seanan and McGuire, which overall is a series I have really enjoyed and had a very fun time with. I do have a review from last summer, I think, of the first book in the series. I don't know if I'll do a series review or not. I've been talking about this one a fair bit over the past year. So I read books 8 through 10 in the series. Book 8 in InCryptid I actually liked quite a lot. It was the end of kind of a 3-book arc, and that one was called That Ain't Witchcraft. Sorry, the titles kind of blur together for me in this series quite a bit. So I really enjoyed that one, and I felt like it was a really exciting setup. But then the way this series works is that every few books we jump to a different narrator within the same family, and I've pretty much liked all of them so far. But Sarah Zellaby, who is the narrator for books 9 and 10, she is sort of a cousin of the 3 narrators we had before that, an adopted cousin. She's actually a member of a non-human species that get referred to as cuckoos. Basically, she's a telepath in a way that can actually be quite dangerous. So this is the first time she has been sort of the main character, and I like her, but just I didn't love the plot of books 9 and 10, which, I should mention the titles. Those are Imaginary Numbers and Calculated Risks. So I liked them fine, but they were definitely my least favorite in the entire series. But there is InCryptid number 11 coming out, I think, early 2022, and I'm really excited for that one. The main character is the grandma, Alice, and she is pretty badass, and I am so excited to have a book from her perspective. In September, I continued reading the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, so I read number 2, which is Artificial Condition. I really liked this. I think I ranked it a little bit lower this month just because it's pretty short on its own, so maybe it didn't have quite as much of an impact, but I'm still really loving Murderbot. It's October now when I'm filming this, and I actually just started listening to number 3, and I'm loving that so far, so I'm still really enjoying Murderbot. I think Murderbot is a great character, and I'm excited to catch up on this series. Then I finished reading the Interdependency trilogy by John Scalzi. This, I talked about the first book in my last wrap-up, and this is a trilogy that I was reading for the Hugo Awards project. It's a space opera trilogy, a pretty quick read. I'm going to film a series review of this for the Hugos project, so I won't talk about it too much right now, but it was really fun. I overall enjoyed where it went. It was very quick, definitely more of a snack than a meal, but I kind of enjoyed that. I read books 2 and 3 back to back, where often with heftier series, these days I take breaks between books of the series. So I really enjoyed this one a lot. I think book 3 was probably still my least favorite out of the 3, but I thought it was a fairly strong trilogy if you want fun science fiction. Also in September, I finished listening to Tropic of Serpents by Brennan. This is the second one in the Memoirs of Lady Trent. I was a little bit let down on my reread of the first book because I found the pacing kind of slow compared to what I remembered from the first time I read it, but I actually really enjoyed this one. It does have more politics than dragons, which I saw some reviewers complain about. I kind of didn't mind. I mean, I do think dragons are cool, but it was kind of an interesting story. It's a story that's set, it's sort of an alternate of our world. So the countries all have different names and stuff, but you can kind of see what they're analogous to. The main character, Isabella Camhurst, is a young woman who is trying to become respected as a scientist in a very Victorian kind of world. So she faces a lot of barriers because of her gender, obviously. In this book, she is partnering on a research expedition to Africa analog with a scientist who is a man, but he's from a lower class background, so he also has kind of a lot to prove. And even though the book is about these scientists, it also explores the ways in which science can't really be entirely detached from politics. It deals a lot with themes of colonialism and what it is for these, well, not actually Europeans, but I forget what the term for them in the book is, to be going into these other cultures and looking for things that suit their own ends rather than, and then kind of learning to look at what are actually the needs of the cultures that they're visiting. So there's a lot of that. And then also some dragons. I just really love the main character because she is pretty much completely driven by her love of science and research and her desire for knowledge. And she has a pretty, I guess you'd call it kind of like a cold personality, but she's really just kind of single-minded. I think she's a very interesting and well-done character. The series is told as a memoir by her older self. So you can see now in book 2 how she's starting to mature and develop into a more well-rounded person, even as she continues to pursue her dreams and her scientific inquiries. So that's pretty much everything I read in September. Went by kind of quickly because I talked about so many series. Right now, I am currently reading The Shadow Rising, book 4 of Wheel of Time. So I have started my reading reaction vlog for that. I'm hoping to finish that in the next few days, but we'll see. Usually what happens with these is I eventually kind of just like buckle down and do it in a day or two, so it's kind of a whirlwind. I also am currently listening to Murderbot 3. I did read the first 2, but then there was a really, really long wait from the library to check out the ebooks for 3 and 4, and the audiobooks were available, and I just didn't want to spend $10 on a Kindle book that I was going to read in under an hour. It felt a little extravagant. Although, I mean, I have no problem with them charging that, but just I like to get novellas from the library where I can. So, looking ahead, I am planning to keep reading Murderbot. That is sort of a 2-for-1 with my Hugos project, because Network Effect, which I think is the first Murderbot novel, so maybe that means it's number 5. Did I get that right? Anyway, that is on the list for best novel, and then Murderbot Diaries itself is on the list for best series, so I'm working on that. I have a few ARCs that I need to read. I have an arc of Truth of the Divine by Lindsay Ellis, which is the sequel to Axiom's End. That's coming out like October 17th, so I need to read that. I also have arcs of The Veiled Throne by Ken Liu and The Fall of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. So those are 2 of my most anticipated reads of the fall. I've been finding I have kind of a weird relationship with arcs. I get really excited to get them, and then once I have them, I feel kind of weird to read things so far in advance. Like I kind of miss waiting for release. So we'll see. But it's also, you know, I am like the queen of finding out spoilers, so I do like to have the option to read things early. It's kind of fun. While we're here, let's also just take a quick peek at my Hugo Awards categories that I'm reading and see what I still have left to do. So for Best Novel, the only book on here that I haven't read yet is Network Effect by Martha Wells, which I'm gonna get to. I'm not sure if it'll be this month, but I'm working on that. I may or may not reread some of these. I have a video from the spring where I talk about my general plans for what I want to reread, so you can check that out if you're interested. The novellas, thank goodness I finished. For the best series category, I may again do some rereading of things in this category, but the only things I have left are Murderbot Diaries, and I haven't read any of the October Day series by Seanan and McGuire yet. I have heard that the first one of the October Day series isn't the strongest because it's her first ever published book, so I feel like I do need to read few of them, but I guess if I really don't like the first one, I'm not going to force myself to continue. So we'll see what happens with that. So I guess the category where I probably have the most left to read is the Best New Writer category. What do I have left? Actually, yeah, I just finished in October The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. I'll do a review of that soon. So I have books by Micaiah Johnson, Jen Lyons, and Emily Tesh. So, you know, other than massive amounts of rereading and the October Day series, I feel like I'm on okay track with the Hugo Awards project. It's just a little weird because this year I had read so many of the best novels and some of the series already. So that, along with the ARCS and Wheel of Time, is kind of what you can expect from me in the next couple months. Plus, you never know. I don't know if I'd quite call it a mood reader because I don't really know what that means, but I definitely have been just kind of following my whims a little bit more the past few months instead of planning out what I'm going to read for the month. But this is generally what I'm working on. So let me know what you guys think I should read next. Let me know if you've read and loved or hated any of the books I talked about in this video, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you in the comments.